Good afternoon. I'm so glad to see you here. There's so many choices. Sometimes it becomes overwhelming. I am going to talk to you today, and it shouldn't take more than, I hope, 30 minutes because I know you've got lots of things that you want to do too. But if you have any questions, I'll take those questions at the end and I'll take them outside so that way we can clear the area for the next person. I'll also have hours in the main area near front desk. I'll have hours at 3 o'clock for anything else that you might have questions about. I'm going to put my glasses on. You know how that is, huh? Reading glasses, $10, dollar store. Okay. Okay, on location in Alaska, today's talk is fins, feathers, and furs. And I imagine that you know what I'm talking about. The wonderful animals of Alaska. How many of you, the main purpose of you wanting to be here on this cruise to Alaska is to be able to see animals and wildlife? Take a look at each other. Keep your hands up. You will see fellow folks who've dreamed of seeing a whale. And let me tell you, if you've never seen a whale in the water, there is nothing to compare. It's one of those, as Oprah Winfrey likes to say, aha. Seriously. So I want all of you to have that experience. Now I'm going to talk about whales and birds and fish, and there are a couple of things I want to share with you in a general overview of the animals. There are many, many animals in this great land of the North. Some of them you won't see in the areas that we're at, but for the most part, you're going to be able to have an opportunity to see the animals that are the most popular. And I did a little research for you, and I found out that they have bats in Alaska. So they have 3 kinds of polar bears, and they have other bears, but you won't see polar bears. You got to go way north for that. If you decide you really do want to travel further north next time, Holland America has joint land and sea that'll take you even up to Denali, which is, of course, where Mount McKinley is. There's beaver, bison, caribou, coyote, deer. They have many dolphins, elk, called the Roosevelt elk, 2 kinds of foxes, which would be, of course, the red fox in the Arctic, the goats, the rabbits, the lemming, the lynx. That's the mammals. Mink, martens, moose, otters. I'm going through short lists here. Porcupines, all right, porpoises, reindeer. Of course, you're not going to see those down here. Seals, we'll see. I'm going to talk about that. And squirrels and walruses, that's up north. And wolves and wolverines. Also, all kinds of birds. I'm not going to go into detail if you have any questions about specifics, but for sure we will see the bald eagle, and I'll be telling you about that. And as far as fish, there are hundreds and hundreds of fish. If I sat here and read you a list, you'd be going to sleep like he's almost doing. No, I'm just kidding. So, but if there's anything specific that you would like to know about, whether the names of the birds or the invertebrates, I know there's no snakes. Did you know that? There's 5 different kinds of crabs, scallops, 4 different kinds of shrimp. They have snails, which is called, this is interesting, a Sitka snail. So you might be able to see those in there. And 1 kind of worm. So let's move on here. As I mentioned, why are we here? Why did you come here? There's no other cruise in the world that's quite like an Alaska cruise. Anybody that this is the first time you've been to Alaska? Let me see. All right, thank you. How about this is not the first time you've been to Alaska? Keep your hands up so people can see. You know why you're back, don't you? It's that moment that I mentioned, isn't it? What happens, travel is the greatest teacher, I've always said, no matter where you want to go. But there is something about Alaska that will grab your heart, and you'll go back, and there's only a handful of places in the world, that I can tell you that as a fact, that there is a yearning to see it again, right? There's a yearning to go back. I just didn't have enough time to see it all. So the water there in the area where we're going to be in the south area along the Inside Passage will be about 50 degrees. Now, that might sound cold to you, but the animals in the ocean love it. And this is an important temperature for them to survive. There is a year-round current, and this current moves all the nutrients. And why this time of the year, particularly when the animals are breeding and they're coming back to their home areas, you have the opportunity to be a part of all that and see, because of that current that brings the nutrients to them. And that's another example of the movement. Once the snow is melted, it'll move the ground, and some of the ground with the nutrients goes into the ocean. There's all kinds of things. Now, under the sea, before we talk about that, let me tell you that Alaska has the largest percentage of forests in the world. And there are lots of hiking trails. Even if you don't want to extend yourself too much, if there's a trail that you think you want to go, you will see animals and various flora and fauna. But the forests and the trails are wonderful, and there's a good chance of seeing animals. Under the sea, there's a parallel forest under the sea. That is a bull kelp. Kelp is one of the major sources of food for many of the animals, particularly the water animals, and I'm talking specifically about the whales. It holds the blades afloat, and at the surface it gets a lot of sunlight, and it can grow up to 80 feet long. So when you see these crazy things as floating on the top of the ocean, you'll know it's kelp. Now, Uulagan. This is an ancient fish, and you'll still see them. When the indigenous people saw the Uulagan coming in the waters, they knew it was the beginning of spring. Now, they leave kind of a greasy trail, which is called the Greasy Trail. But it leaves a path. And this was used by a lot of folks trying to get to Dawson's Creek. And the Uulagan, when they die and they're dried out, they'll burn like a candle because there's so much oil. Okay, so we're talking about the salmon too. This fishing is the number one most important, more than tourism, even though they're happy that we're coming. Unlike other places you might go where you're going, are they happy that we're here and spending our money? You know, Alaskans are wonderful people. And the main source of economy is going to be fishing. In fact, you can go fly fishing or deep water fishing for salmon if you like, but for sure you're going to have, if you want, a salmon bake, or of course we'll have salmon on board. Did you know that they have a better sense of smell than dogs or bears? The things we learn. And of course the salmon die after they spawn. I hope that you've seen those videos where the salmon are coming back home. They're get to spawn, and they're going back to it. It's a 2-year cycle. So the ones that you're seeing are going back to where they were born. Somehow they know exactly where they were born. And that's what that is. And it's always amazing when I see videos of the salmon jumping against the current. Have anybody seen that too? In the videos, I wish I had a video to show you, and maybe I'll be able to find one, but it's truly amazing what the salmon do. And of course, salmon, been around a long time, is very integral to the indigenous people who were there before the white man. They were symbols, not only as a food product, but a part of their culture and their storytelling. There you have the salmon that we have, the sockeye, the chum, the pink, the coho, and the king. Now, the sockeye is now on the endangered species list. So in Alaska, they're very environmental and ecologically aware, and they work very strongly with each other and whoever they can, whether it's the federal government or the fishermen, to make sure that anything that's endangered will be taken care of, so that it won't stay on that endangered list. Bears love salmon. I can't wait to see the bears, and you will see bears, I guarantee you. There are two kinds of bears you'll see. One is the brown, also known as the grizzly, and the little bit smaller bear, and his talons on his hands, his nails or his claws, are a little bit shorter with the black bear. But that's the brown bear, also known as the grizzly. And don't be surprised, on one of the docks, you might see the bears right there at the end going after the salmon. It's amazing. Have your camera ready all the time. Don't always put the little cap on the focus on the lens, because I'm telling you, you'll never know what you're going to see. Now the bears, you're going to see them. It's that time of the year. You picked the good time. They'll be in Juneau, Sitka, and Ketchikan. Oh, look, he's so sweet. That's the teddy bear. It's a sea otter. I love sea otters, and you will have a chance to see them. They spend half of the daylight hours grooming. Well, if you think about it, this is the land of the midnight sun, so daylight is long, and as we get into our summers here, it'll get even longer. And there's one swimming on the back. They eat 25% of their body weight each day. Now, I'll tell you what you might see. When the babies are born, the mothers protect them by swimming on their back and laying the babies on top of them. Oh, it's so sweet. There's a sea otter, and it is in the endangered species list, but you will have a chance to see them. Again, they're working very closely with all the folks that they can to get that off the endangered species list. They're also river otters. They move very quickly, and you may or may not be able to see one. They're usually seen on land, although they do stay in the water too. If you're going to a river or in a river area, say you're going to go fly fishing, for sure you'll see them in the rivers there. And again, they're like a lot of others. They swim on their stomach. Where are you going to see otters? Well, Juneau, Sitka, and Ketchikan. And the seals. Lots and lots of seals. Seals are wonderful. This is their mating time and the time that the babies are born. And it's interesting because they're so protective of their young that you will see them on ice floats like that, or somewhere very distant with their babies. That's a mother and her baby. Because they're very awkward on land, and this is, of course, to protect the babies from predators. Then there is the Steller sea lion. These are huge. Steller is one of the explorers that was in Alaska. The Steller sea lion, you see there, they have little ears. That's how you can tell the difference. They have little ears, and they are huge. And when they make, that one's got his mouth open, they make a sound I can't even imitate. And they're making a sound to each other. If only I had audio. The males don't eat during the mating season. Guess they've got one thing on their mind, huh? Okay, we're going to see seals and the harbor seals and the others in Juneau, Sitka, and Ketchikan. So look out and see if you'll see the mothers with the babies. Now here's a bird that's interesting. It's the puffin. Again, this is a very difficult one to see, but who knows? You just don't know what's going to be out there. It sheds the colorful part of that beak you see there after the mating season. Beautiful birds. And again, they spend most of their time living in the water. Well, you know, Benjamin Franklin back in the time suggested that the animal, the bird, that should be recognized as the bird of the United States was going to be the turkey. Thank goodness somebody talked him out of it, although I like turkeys, gobble gobble. But that is the bald eagle. And I'll tell you what, in Alaska, they are like pigeons. You are going to see them everywhere. And let me put this up there. Their wingspan is between 6 and 8 feet. You're not going to miss them. And they can travel, when they're diving and they're coming down for the food, they can go up to 200 miles per hour. Maybe we'll get to see that too. You just never know. You just never know. Now, there was a time, and some of you may remember, that the bald eagle was on the endangered species list. There was great concern. It's no longer on the endangered species list. In fact, it's at the very far right of least concern, because there was concerted effort by thousands of people to save the American bald eagle. And we did it. And if we can do it with the eagle, we can do it with any other animals that have become on the endangered list. We do not want any animals to ever be extinct again. There are 2 animals in this area that are extinct. and that one is a Commodore, and the other is what was called a sea cow, and they have not been seen in over 100 years. The bald eagle, as I said, they're like pigeons. Anybody ever been to Venice? You go in the area there of St. Mark's, and it feels like a million penguins, because if you've got the food there, they're coming after you and take pictures of all these birds hanging on you. Well, the eagle's not going to come do that, but you'll see lots and lots of eagles. Now, let's get into the mammals that are in the ocean. There are porpoises and there are dolphins. This is the Dall's porpoise. This one rarely jumps out of the water, but you will be able to see it. Now take a look at it has a raised tail, makes a distinct splash. Dolphins, I'll tell you what, I don't know if you've been on other cruises where you've noticed, you look down to where the forward of the ship, that's the front of the ship, you look down and you'll see dolphins swimming along, and that may happen with us. Dolphins are highly creative animals, very sociable, and they really do. I love dolphins. I just love them. Anyway, and they travel in pods. And here in Alaska, they will travel in pods, and that means a group of them of 100 or more. There's so many of them up here. There, as I mentioned, they like to play. They might approach the ship. Now, what's the difference between a dolphin and a porpoise? Well, it's basically their teeth for the first part of it. The dolphins have conical or pointed, rounder teeth, and the porpoises have spaded, as you see there on the right, spaded, semi-flat shaped teeth. Not that we're going to get that close to one, but just so you know. And the dolphins we'll see again. All along for the next few days till you get back to Seattle, there's an opportunity of seeing them. Whales. Don't count, even though we know they're probably going to be there, of not doing anything about seeing whales. And what do I mean by that? You look out on the water today, and the ocean underneath is teeming with life. The only way, I highly suggest, if the reason you came here was to see whales, and as one of the major things, I highly encourage you to sign up for your Shorex groups, whether it's the 150 passenger boat that's easy and it's good for, they're wonderful. They take you out there, and you'll see the whales there at a little bit of it, not so far a distance as you might see with the ship, but it's also accessible for wheelchairs. And there's another whale watch the boat's a little bit smaller, and it gets pretty close. And that's what I'm going to do, because I want to get as close as possible. But if you came on this trip to see whales as one of your top priorities, you really need to sign up for the excursions. That's the only way that you're ever going to get that close to the whales. And if you don't see whales, the company guarantees you $100 back. So that's how sure they are that they're going to be able to take you right to where these pods of whales are. This is a baleen whale. Now the throat, this is amazing. The throat is no bigger than a cantaloupe, but their teeth are like sieves, and up to 500 gallons of water will go through there as they blow it out, because they're accumulating small fish, kelp, or anything that they want for eating. Now, there's a gray whale. The gray whale we may or may not see, because you see the migration goes from the south all the way up. It's the longest mammal migration, but I doubt very seriously we'll see them, but you never know. You just don't know. The humpback whale. I remember I was actually in Hawaii the first time I saw a whale, and I was driving a rental car along an edge in Maui, if anybody's been there. I was working for the cruise line, and I'm driving, so I'm on the edge there, and I look out in the distance of the ocean, and there's two whales coming up out of the ocean. I almost ran off the road. It just took my breath away. I want you to have that. I want you to have that experience when you see these animals. The humpback whale has, as you see, they come up, the bubble net feeding, and they're going to take whatever the sustenance they need, whether it's the fish or the kelp, for them. And you'll see, if you look off in the distance and you see a misty spew of looks like air, but it's really air and water coming out, that is the blowhole for the humpback whale. Each one of the lungs is the size of a Volkswagen Bug. That's big. The females weigh up to 40 tons by the end of summer. But at the end of winter, the mothers have lost 40% of their body weight, of course, because of nursing and giving birth and taking care of their, within the pods, they protect their children. And that's, look at that. At one time, the humpback whale was considered endangered, almost even further left than the EN. A concerted effort, worldwide effort, to preserve this magnificent mammal. And now look where she is. Least concern. That's a round of applause for those people that did that. If you love animals and humpback whales are something special to you, they did it, and that just shows you can do anything. All right, where are we going to see humpback whales? Well, they're out in the ocean everywhere, even today. We have some folks that live in Victoria that are taking this cruise. And I said, do you think our husband's very ill? And I said, well, do you think he'd want to go see the whales? She said, oh, no, I can see them from our house. But will we see some today? I don't know. But they're out there. Then there's the orca. Now, the orca is distinct. It's very rare that you'll see one alone, but they don't travel in big pods. And they have the second largest brain to ever evolve. They're amazing creatures. There's a lot of discussion. I know all of you probably heard the news from SeaWorld where the orca suddenly just kind of, nobody knows why, drowned some of the people that work with them. And there's a great discussion now about should we have orca whales doing sea shows. I don't have an answer to that. Only each one of us knows what's important to us, but you may see orca whales. Now, how do any of the whales communicate? It's through sonar. They make sounds, and they're called whale songs. Now, you won't be able to hear it because they do it under the ocean. They tell each other whatever it is they're telling each other by this sound that's made. Now, Alan Hovhaness, the composer, wrote a piece for the Seattle Symphony called Song of the Whales. And within it, he incorporated the song of whales, the sound of whales, as an instrument. So if you ever want to Google or YouTube, it's the Seattle Symphony's Song of the Whales. Absolutely amazing. I wish I could bring audio in on this so you could hear it. Maybe next time I'll just bring something and put it up to the mic so you can hear it. But very interesting. And I'd encourage you to go to Google or YouTube and just pull up whale songs and just listen to that sound because they are communicating. That's the clicks. It doesn't sound like a click, though. It's part click and part... That's a good imitation. All right. Now, the male and the male orca, you can obviously see the difference. The dorsal fin is much bigger on the male. And when the orca goes in the water with the tail up, the underside is going to be white. And we see the orca in the waters all up and down. We may or may not see orcas now. They say that some of the orcas come up in the end of May, but you never know. And I'll be here tomorrow with a presentation called Fire and Ice here, and it'll be in the morning at 10 a.m. before we get to Juneau. And that's going to be about the geology, the geography, and the extremes of Alaska, from the cold north to volcanoes to Mount McKinley and a lot of stuff like that. Thank you so much for coming to this presentation. I hope it's given you a little bit more information than perhaps you had before. But I encourage you, please, part of this is going to be the animal experience. And actually, its number one choice is to be a part of the wilderness and enjoy the wonderful fins, feathers, and flight of all of the animals that we have here. Thank you so much. Thank you.